Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 128, and our book is Chains of Golgotha by David Annandale, a novella that tells the...
Not this whole thing.
It's the novella that tells what happened to Commissar Yarrick when he spent a weekend at Thraka's Airbnb. We posted several questions on our website, actually a handful of questions since it's a novella, on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via our site, YouTube, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you haven't yet read this book, check out the book and the questions, and then come back to this episode as we'll be discussing the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. As always, Carrie, did you like the story?
I'm too busy thinking about what the Yelp review would be for this Airbnb.
I mean, it kind of depends, right? Because if you're like, you have a certain expectation of being tortured by orcs, 10 out of 10. But for just, the general experience of it, yeah, no. 1, can you give 0 stars?
I think you can give 0. I don't know. Anyway,
I think you would give 2 stars.
I loved it. This thing was so much fun to read. I nearly read it all in one sitting.
I love this story. I remember reading it 11 years ago when it first came out, because in looking for, I wanted to double check something, and I was like, oh, Chains of Golgotha, because I couldn't remember when it came out. I found my review for it on Forbes. I was like, oh my God. That's how long ago it was. But I remember really liking the story, but really all I remembered of it was, oh yeah, he gets captured. And then Thraka is like, see you soon, buddy. That was really all I remembered of it. So rereading it, I was like, oh man, I forgot how delightful this story is.
Like, I don't know if Annandale intentionally wanted this to be funny in some parts, but there are some parts I laughed out loud.
I think, and we can talk more about that, but I think this book did a good job, because you and I have talked about this before, where like, when you read books from the orc's perspective, funny. When you read books from human perspective, terrifying. There are rare books, the Catachan Devil book, I think. Catachan Devil? With the orcs?
Was it called Catachan Devil?
I think it was. Wasn't that the Catachan one that had the orcs in it? And that one actually bridged it, because you had scenes from the Imperial point of view and then scenes from the orcs point of view. So funny over here, scary over here, right? I think this book actually did a pretty good job of marrying those two, being from the Imperials. And maybe it's because we've read so many orc books, we can fill in the blanks.
There's just so many things that just happened. Like just random things. Like when he would hear, they'd kind of pause as they're sneaking around. He'd hear the orcs scream, and then they'd like, okay, we can go. It was like, to me, that just kind of cracked me up. Little things like that. Or when the orcs were like laughing at their ragged little band, and Polis and Castell came running out. They're like, okay, what are you guys going to do? And then Castell beheaded one of them, and there's like the laughter stopped. It's like record scratch moment. Like, this isn't funny anymore.
Oh no, now we're not having fun. Now we're just gonna scrap. Yes, and I think that's also made more funny. And maybe this is just me, but like we talked about this when we read Purging of Catalyst. Oh my God. I nailed the pronunciation. I nailed the
first time.
First time. Anyways, some real growth moment for me. We talked about this there, where it's like, oh, I can see how these scenes went from their perspective now, because we've read so many orc books. I think that was made even more humorous for me when I'm like, oh, you know how this conversation went on their side. It's a beheading. Makes every situation more joyous. I think so. This is a real kind of crappy thing, but one of the scenes that just stood out to me is, of course, everything about the epilogue, everything about the ending just really stands up. But the description of Rogue, that guy being welded to the chair was
permanent servitor,
a sentient servitor that That's messed up. Like,
I
deeply,
found it really
deeply messed up.
interesting that if he hadn't said where Yarrick is, I think they just would have killed him. Right?
I think you're right.
But because he said where he was, like, Thraka's just like, you're not cool. And
That's cool.
you go with the pain boy now.
I think in some ways, why that stands out to me so much is that I love the phrasing when Yarrick kind of walks past Thraka and he's like, it wasn't the words that were so scary. It's that they were in high Gothic.
Right.
That's scary, right? But then this goes back to actually that scene from that, the second or the third Night Lords book. Again, they've all come into one story in my head. But when Lycoraphus is talking and he's like, oh, no, there's something still very deeply human about you, tech priest, because the scream. He's like, this took a very human mind to come up with. That idea of the sentient servitor, that took a borderline human cruelty. Because it says that the orcs understand a lot more about humans than we think they do.
Right. I mean, they basically made him a
Terrifying.
penitent engine.
Yeah, essentially. But like that, we know that the orcs are cruel and we know that they have that type of barbarism because it's funny. But that tells me that they know a lot. They understand us better than I think we think they do. Maybe that's just Thraka's pain boy. Maybe his guy is like, oh, yep, I've got some thoughts here.
You know, Castell would talk about, this horrors that she saw. One of the unfortunate side effects of World War II with the concentration camps and the prisoners of war in Japan was that they experimented on people while they were still alive, dissected them, learned a lot about human anatomy. Most of the human anatomy that we know is from that, as awful as that is. And, it wouldn't surprise me. That's where they learned like all of this stuff. Probably got a hold of a servitor. How does this thing work?
Along those lines, this is a slight interjection, but along those horrific lines, like there have been huge jumps in our understanding of genetics and like which genes carry what markers.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to the southern Utah, because of the massive amounts of inbreeding in like Warren Jeffs. Anyways, horrible, but pushing science. Yeah, that's the kind of that's exactly. I'm sure that they have done some awful stuff and they're like, ha, we've learned. But they're not
we
using
know
that
they do it
knowledge
to each other, right? So it would make sense that while we're here, we have these prisoners. Let's just experiment on them and see what makes them tick.
Well, and I'm sure, especially for the pain boys, because we've seen that before in other stories where the pain boys are very interested in understanding things a little better. So you could absolutely see them being like, oh, I kind of want to understand these humies a little better. I want to understand stuff better. And I could have been doing it because it was funny.
Right.
Or because it was awful. Either way, he's going to have a good time.
Pretty much.
Right? Just, oh my gosh. But that whole thing that makes the whole ending chilling. Because again, it's, oh yeah. We're, at least a handful of us are far, far more intelligent than you guys think we are.
Well, that's actually one thing that, Yarrick kept mentioning in here over and over again. Kept underestimating him. Like, and he knew he was smart, but even then he was like, and I still underestimated him.
So let's jump over to Yarrick. Do you like him even more now, or do you like him just the same?
I like him more now because, like, obviously he's a lot more seasoned. But I couldn't help but compare him with Caiaphas Cain, as mainly because there was like, a couple of lines in there so good where he, like Caiaphas, he's aware of the legend, the myth around him. And also
yes, he is.
And also like Caiaphas, he doesn't believe that about himself. And like one of my favorite lines in there is when he's talking about Lanner, rest in peace, Lanner, where he's like, it is one thing to be aware of one's own legend. Lanner made sure I never believed in it.
Right.
And
It's kind of a weird, funny juxtaposition there because you have, for Caiaphas Cain, right, he has his valet, who is just kind of funny, and never seems to realize who Caiaphas Cain is, really like, oh yeah, you're not this big hero, right? You're just this guy. So it kind of keeps him grounded. Yarrick is, of course, a more serious version of that. Serious, who keeps him grounded. I like the idea that the two most famous, successful commissars need to have the opposite of a Jiminy Cricket, like a don't forget who you are person.
right. I mean, I don't know if it's as much Jurgen as it's really Amberly. Like, it's
Both.
I mean, Jurgen, I don't know. I think Jurgen, he doesn't fawn over him because that's just not what Jurgen does. And that may be the grounding point, that he doesn't have his assistant is not all, fawning all over him. He's just like, this is what I'm supposed to do, sir. And moves on. But I guess what I was trying to say is like, he depends on these people to keep him grounded and not believe in it. Whereas Caiaphas Cain the whole time is just like severe imposter syndrome. He's like, I'm not this great of a person. A lot of this is by accident, even though we know a lot of it's also not by accident. But, but Yarrick is more of everything he does is definitely 100% purposeful. And one thing I really did like about him is that even though he made a comment about there's something freeing about hopelessness, which is also like a really cool line, he never gives up. Like, he's almost like the Winston Churchill, right, of the commissars. Like, never, 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 never quit. Because he never did. Kept going. No matter what was going on around him.
That's true. That's true. But like, I feel like with Yarrick, there's always a sense of, so Caiaphas Cain doesn't believe his legend because he knows how he's feeling internally, so he doesn't feel like, well, I mean, yeah, I saved this planet because I saved myself. Like, I don't want to die on this planet, right? Like, he has that, as you said, like major imposter syndrome. I feel like Yarrick has more of a, as one does.
Yes. It's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Like, it's not, he has this wonderful imperial sense of dignity to him, but also this just, I mean, obviously I would do that. Any good commissar would do that.
Well, like, even when he's in the cages and he's like kind of rallying people, and the first 3 people, he was like, it was courageous, yes, but I expected no less out of them.
Exactly. I feel like, if more than else, so okay, I don't know if this makes sense now that's coming out of my head, but like, Caiaphas Cain knows how to work people and play people, and that works to one of his strengths as a commissar, right? He knows how to appeal to people's sense of humor. He knows how to appeal to their sense of courage, their sense of the heroic, their imperial duty, all of that stuff. And he's very political in that nature. Yarrick is more of the, again, as one does, like, you will do this. Like, I expect this of you. He reminds me very much of a very strict teacher, right? Who just knows that you're going to do the right thing, obviously. It makes him, it's fun. And I actually really preferred him in the first person than to the third person because, and I know that it's harder. I know that it's super, super hard. That was one of, I think I mentioned this in my Forbes review too, but like, one of the things that Dan Abnett said that really struck me when he wrote Ravener was that the biggest mistake he made with Eisenhorn was making it person point of view because it's so difficult. You can't just jump away, which is why Ravener has that I do not like that broken. Sometimes it's first person. Sometimes it's third person.
Right.
Sometimes it's third person omniscient. I don't love that. I really liked the first person point of view in this because, again, it makes Yarrick, it manages to take this character who's not very relatable, but kind of make him relatable because we get to see what's ticking in his head, as it were, and how he's reacting to this – very, very interesting
to the fun
situation.
House.
Um, yeah, to the Funhouse.
Funhouse of Horrors. That's right.
Did you like did you like the other Imperials in here as well?
Except for Roggy. I'll just say Rog, except for Rog. Like, I wanted to give him a chance because I didn't believe that the ambush was entirely his fault, right?
Right.
But when he decided that they were all nuts and that Yarrick was going to get them all killed, I'm like, you don't understand. You were dying here to begin with. So what does it matter? And if you even bothered to talk to him, you would know that he didn't think he was going to escape either. Like, he made it very clear to anyone who asked, we're not getting out of here. We're just doing what we can to make their lives just a little bit more miserable on the way out.
Because we're good Imperials soldiers, and this
Right.
is what we do. We don't give up. We just keep fighting.
But the other Imperials, like, it's like he doesn't, whereas Caiaphas Cain is very relatable to other people, and Yarrick is not, but at the same time, he understands people better. Like Barrowman. He was about to kill him, and then realized what was actually going on, and then asked him about it later. And so when Barrowman had that release, and he cried himself to sleep, I'm like, oh my God, that's, he is being a good Imperial soldier. He's helping people as much as you may disagree with how he's doing it, but he has to do it in a certain way that the orcs don't think that he is helping people.
Right.
But so, I mean, I did like Barrowman even to the very end. I thought the way he ended, I thought was a little dramatic, but it was just, that was actually one part I kind of laughed too. It's like, I know it's supposed to be really dramatic, but it's kind of, funny. I actually had a oh my gosh, a Cowboy Bebop moment there when Spike falls out. So I actually heard that music playing in my head. It's like, yeah, I could kind of see that. But like, I liked Castle. I really liked Polis. I felt so bad for Polis. Like the whole idea of like the eidetic memory that was making him go insane. But by getting back to counting and numbers and stuff, he was able to stay somewhat sane. And I like that,
He was able to keep himself somewhat calm and at least
just
not a hindrance.
Busy without the mind going to that. And that, Yarrick, yes, he definitely saw a use for him. And then Polis said that one thing of clarity where he's just like, my mission's over. I can't help you anymore. Like, we've gotten you where you need to go, and I'm not getting out of this alive. So YOLO, friends. let's do this.
Yeah. Don't forget that I'm the one who helped you.
Like, I liked Lanner. I was so sad that Lanner ended up dying.
I think it is hard to create an emotional connection in 124 pages. It is really difficult, but this book did.
But Lanner was like his Jurgen. He was like describing like, he refused to be promoted. He had to stay by his side, blah, 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 blah. And then he gets killed. It's like, okay, that sucks.
I'm just throwing out this. They're never going to kill Jurgen. He should have gotten the same plot armor at the plot armor store.
It's true. Jurgen does have very thick plot armor. I think it's called being a blunt.
Yeah, it could be. I like all of the characters because I thought he did a really good job of making them relatable and understandable. So, like, that's a good example, right? Like with Polis, yes, he's going kind of crazy, but I also like that Yarrick recognizes it too. Yarrick immediately is like, oh no, that's okay. I can use this. Like, he's not that's the other reason that I think Yarrick is such a great commissar and such a great character is that we have seen commissar characters throughout several books who would just be like, all right, gotta find a way to kill you because you're crazy. You're useless. I don't like the way you're looking at me. You're not thinking about this, right? Like, very much comes into a pragmatic, these are the weapons I have and I have to go to war with this.
Right. It was like when even Trower, when he's just like rolling his eyes and snorting at Rog, whatever he's doing. And he looks over at him because he's like, I will not tolerate dissent because this is what we have.
Exactly. We cannot. He also, I thought that was that's good call out because I did like that of course I have to sneeze now. It's like there's been these fires in Colorado, if anybody's been paying attention to that, and the smoke, like the air quality. The air quality, I feel so old when I complain about this, but the air quality is not very good right now in Colorado. Even down in the city, and I'm just like dying here inside. Anyways, moving on. I liked that yes, as you said, there was like this, he was able to look at all these people and realize that, first off, I need to use all of these people. These are all I have. We have to get everybody here, and we cannot fall to infighting. A, the orcs would probably find that funny.
Right.
And B, and we're not going to give them that, by God. And B, and arguably more importantly, if we fall apart, we're never getting out of here. Ever. Nor, even if, because I don't know, I feel like somewhere in his mind, maybe Yarrick still had a little bit of hope that they were going to get out. But even if not, even if the main goal was, let's just cause a whole lot of headache for them, you're not going to do that with like 2 or 3 guys.
Right.
Like this little faction went over here, and then this little faction went over here, and this little faction. And I liked that everybody was actually understandable. I didn't like Rog. I didn't like him, obviously. But you understand where his mind is going. And you understand why he's just desperate to survive. Like that kick of survival. I can tell you where Yarrick is. But I actually laughed at that. Because if anyone's watched the Warhammer Plus show, I'm about to spoil it a little bit, Iron Within, there is a wonderful scene where there's 2 Imperials and the Iron Warrior, the Terminator guy kind of... Wait, was it the Terminator guy? It doesn't matter. The leader of this war band, he kind of explains, he's like, yeah, I've come back to my homeworld and y'all suck, so now it's under new management. And the one Imperial's like, this woman, she refuses. She's like, no, I am not going along with this. But the male Imperial is like, okay, look, this is the best way to do it. He bends the knee, and I was like, oh, son, no. And sure enough, he gets killed. Because the Iron Warriors are not into that. They want the woman who's sitting there going, nope, not happening. Same with Rogue, when he's like, I can tell you where he is. Oh, honey. Joke's on you. They're not into that. That is the opposite. As soon as he did that, I was like, oh my God, no. Tell me you haven't learned anything. Which, to be fair, to understand the mind of an orc as an Imperial.
I also did laugh when it's from his perspective, and he basically, he doesn't hear Castle and Polis die, but he hears the sounds kind of going away. And then Yarrick looks back at him and he turns and runs. Like, to me, that was comical. I was just trying to imagine it in my head. Be like, so, and there he goes. Okay.
Okay. There won't be any more battle for him today, thank you.
It's so just us. And he's just like, typically I would go after him and shoot him, but I had more pressing matters to attend to.
Slightly. Again, that though feeds into, so Yarrick, he goes from being, well, I shouldn't say goes from, but because, people are complicated and he's a complicated character, right? So you have this character who out this entire story is very pragmatic, very much, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. Like, how do we get to the next step? Okay, how do we get to the next step? How do we get to the next step? Like, just every step he gets along the way, just like, okay, now we got to do it again. He takes a lot of it in stride, right? So in the end, when he sees what has become of Rogue, whatever, our word.
Rog.
When he sees what's become of him, he's kind of like, whew, that looks nasty. Anyways, get me out of here. Like, no emotion, doesn't really miss a beat, doesn't even really fret about it. Just kind of like,
but he's
yikes.
also kind of like, well, you kind of deserve, like, I would have killed you, so sorry, you chose poorly.
You chose poorly. Exactly that. Sorry, you made really bad decisions in life. This is where those life choices took you to, by the way. Have fun. It is, I liked that, but it also does remind you that at his heart, he is still a commissar. And just like with Caiaphas Cain, we have seen moments where he's like, yep, the cold commissar is going to come out in me.
Right.
Yarrick, very much so, right? But that was a scene where I was like, oh, fitting. Just kind of fitting.
Whereas, though, the difference, though, is like, yes, the cold commissar comes out, but Caiaphas Cain uses it as a threat. He doesn't actually want to have to do it. Whereas Yarrick is just like, give me a reason. Not only am I threatening this, it's not a threat with Yarrick. It's a threat with Caiaphas. It's a promise with Yarrick.
It's a warning with Yarrick. That's true, and that is true. Let's talk a bit about Thraka, though, as the host of this funhouse.
We're going to talk about the giant red buttons, right?
Obviously, we're going to talk about the giant red buttons.
Because I laughed so hard at the giant red buttons.
What did you expect? Like
I don't
was going to
know,
be like a
but
series
the
of
fact
keystrokes.
that each console just had one giant red button, and the center.
It made me think of Monsters versus Aliens.
Yeah.
When he goes to press the big red coffee button, they're like, "That launches all of our nukes." What idiot designed this system?
Yeah.
You did, sir.
And the fact that he's just like, well, you know what? I'm just button mashing. Smashing all the buttons, don't know what they do. We're just going to do that.
It's very, so this is like the thing.
It's like the kid in the elevator.
Exactly. This is the thing that I love about the orcs and even Thraka. So we read the Gosgel Thraka book, right? We read one of the Armageddon stories. We've read this now. Thraka is smart. For an orc. He's still an orc. And I do very much appreciate that every book that we have read with him has not lost sight of that. He's cleverer than most. He definitely has a higher level of intelligence and understanding. But he's still an orc.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the red buttons. All I could think about was the scene from Monsters vs. Aliens, but also the Ren and Stimpy. Can you resist the temptation of the shiny buttons? And of course they were red. Of course they were red. If they were purple, they wouldn't be able to see them.
I mean, red, that means go faster, right? I guess technically, because the whole ship breaks apart, but hey.
I like that they don't... I think one of my big concerns, like when we read the Gosgel Thraka book, part of me was a little bit, and we talked about this during the podcast too, part of me was a little concerned that they would try to make it like, no, actually, you know what? This is a human. This is basically a human level intelligence. And I mean, I guess it kind of is, but like a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, still an orc. I feel like every book we read with him, I just like him a little bit more.
Oh yeah, he's very entertaining.
He's tremendously entertaining for a big bad of the universe, right? And that's one of the things that I always say when I talk about the Warhammer 40k universe in general, how much I like it, because there's all these really cool factions and there's all these really cool major characters. But every time I read a book with Thraka, I think Thraka might be my favorite.
Well, I mean, so we have Yarrick, kind of up in a kind of a crucifix, and Thraka comes in and Yarrick just starts screaming at him, and Thraka's just like, what happens if I do this? And just cuts the chains and down he falls. Well, let's see what he does next, boys. Like,
oh yeah.
Like my favorite little hamster I'm just going to put in a maze. See what he does next.
I love so, okay, again, it had been a while since I had read this story. I like the idea that slowly, begrudgingly, Yarrick earns his respect, but he definitely, the emphasis on that word is earns it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like they have one battle and he's like, oh, I kind of like that guy. Like, Thraka just continually is like, I don't know. As you said, I wonder what happens if we do this.
Right.
I wonder what happens. Oh, damn. So it makes total sense when at the end he's like, oh yeah, I cannot wait to see you again. This is going to be amazing. I like that idea.
So that scene also made me laugh for a couple of reasons. One, because of the animation, old Bale Eye. Because it just kind of like everything kind of fit into place, because like I had seen it and I thought that animation was hilarious and really, really good. But then there's another thing to actually you see kind of where it came from. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I might have to go watch it again. Made me think of that, but it also made me think of God, this terrible anime, Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, no. You did not just invoke NGE.
So the last episode of the original TV series where they're all going, congratulations. Sorry if I'm spoiling a 20-year-old show, but
How dare.
basically everyone's clapping, going, congratulations. I was kind of thinking of that, but obviously in a much better scale because the way that Evangelion ended was just flat out stupid, and this was just funny. It just cracked me up that he wakes up, his Bale Eye is back in correctly, his claw arm is back in correctly, and he has a standing ovation as he's being led to a plane. Like,
it is the most. Here's the thing, though. Again, this is why. Again, this I feel like the story is the thesis statement for why I enjoy the Warhammer 40k universe so much, because it's absurd and yet 100%.
It makes sense in Orc.
It's 100% canonical because the entire thing makes sense. It absolutely makes sense that not only would Gosgil Thraka determine that, okay, this guy is the guy. This is my greatest enemy.
Proper enemy.
That also the rest of the orcs of that war band group would also be like, yeah. And I love the idea that, yes, they're all like, you gotta go home, buddy. We cannot wait to fight you again. Because there's this...
Orcs just want a good crumpin'.
They just want a good fight. And they know that they'll get a good fight if they let him go.
Right.
There will be a better fight
if they kill him.
They can kill him here, or, bear with me, he can go lead an army. And then they'll get a really good... Like, the whole idea, it's so absurd, but it completely follows with orc logic.
Yeah.
It absolutely... Like, it's not one of those things where you're like, really? Nope. Or, I guess in this case, yep, really. They're really going to go and have this just, hey, you get to go home now. We were so excited for this. You can just imagine them just being like, oh my God, and then we're going to have this fight. And then the Crumpin's going to be good. Like, it's amazing. And yes, the idea, but that also goes back to the sort of underlying horror of this whole thing, right? Your arm is back on. Your eye is back. Like, they put you back together right. And there's a ship that will actually work. It's terrifying.
So they really know how human anatomy works. Awesome.
Yeah. They knew enough to torture one guy for the rest of his life, which I would like to imagine that Yarrick puts him out of his misery when they get to where they're going.
Oh, I don't think so. I think he made some comment.
I think he did. But I'm my own headcanon here, Carrie, because I just can't imagine somebody living like that. But also, I think you would have to explain that. Just be like, oh yes, no, that's orc technology. It's fine. Go with it. That is the one thing that I'm like, he escapes orc clutches. And the Imperium's just like, it's all good. Come on back in.
Yep, there it is. He had been transformed into a fully aware servitor. I promised myself he would be one forever.
That's right. Forever could be till they get back to the nearest place, though. I can't. Y'all, the servitors freak me the fuck out.
Servitors do creep me out.
They're not okay.
No. Like the cherubs, not okay. Not okay.
Well, and after we read, what was the name of that book? Where we learned that, the servitors do have just a smidge. They have to have a smidge of sentience, like a smidgen.
Right. I don't remember which book that was. More.
Yeah, but you remember what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That was, I think it was a crime novel. Do you remember when they used to publish Warhammer crime stories? Anyways,
I do. And then they titled them like after like the main characters, so which made us think there's going to be a series, and then there hasn't been.
Remember when they used to publish horror books too? Anyways, good times back in the day. Mm-hmm. We can't complain. We were just going through. We're going to get 6, 8 new books this year. We can't complain, but we're going to. Because it just do be that way.
I
No
have
one
some other complaints
That's
that I
fair.
think I'm going to hammer out on the website sometime. Like,
Ooh.
whatever happened to...
Oh, I would absolutely do something with you on that. Whatever happened to? There's a lot. There's a lot. My current big one is whatever happened to the lion? Remember when he woke up? I do. Grumpy. Anyways, hammering a dead horse here. But that it adds to the creepiness. It just the whole thing adds to the creepiness of it. Of that how much they understand about humans, how much they're willing to go, the ends they're willing to go to for a good fight. Again, the orcs are the only ones living their best lives in this universe.
It's true.
Well, and actually our next book, I think that in some weird kind of messed up way, that person's probably also living her best life. But
Sure.
you know,
As she's trying to stave off dying or really going to sleep.
she who thirsts, yeah. Just a little smart little teaser there. Anything else about Chains of Golgotha? I know this one's kind of a shorter one because it's a shorter book, but let me ask this. Are you glad that we went back and read the novella as part of the overall Yarrick story?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I kind
Because
of
I don't think we would have
read it.
otherwise. Right?
I think you're right.
We would have read Pirates of Armageddon and been like, and that's it. So I'm kind of, so I am glad that we read this because I don't know what I would have gotten back to it. I try to go
would
back
not
and
have
read like,
reread it.
older stuff, but try is the operative word.
But then we also have to like keep it open for the podcast. This reservoir of stuff we have to keep. And I have not forgiven the person who made a genuinely good yet awful suggestion of the Word Bearers Omnibus. I have feelings.
Anthony Reynolds is good though.
I do not love Anthony Reynolds. However,
Yes,
I'm
you do. You
torn.
loved Karn. Don't even lie.
I loved that one. And I love everything he does. Something with David Annandale. This actually reminded me, can I just say really quickly that like some of the David Annandale stuff that we've read recently, I've just been like, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just, it's good. It's good.
Oh, that horror one was good.
Mm-hmm.
With the flies.
Yeah. Yep. This one reminded me why I fell in love with David Annandale. Immediately fell in love with him. Like this, I had that moment again as I was reading the story. I was just like, oh my God. Yes. This was excellent.
Because his Horus Heresy stuff has not been good. Like I guess only I could think of is like, because he wanted to write this one because it was like a planet of monsters and that's kind of his thing and everything, but it doesn't mean it was a good story. May not necessarily been his fault, but it just wasn't very interesting, in a whole, I guess. But this was good. Maybe remember, I'm going to mention this again, the Sons of Titan. His Grey Knights books are really, really good. Man, even that the Primarchs novel with the one he wrote about Reboot, like not Graham McNeil, David Annandale did. Of course, the orcs were in it, but it was great.
He also did the Mortarion book,
Which I have not read it, and you did not like.
Now, to be fair, I really have not liked any of the Primarch books, with a couple of notable exceptions. The Lehman Russ one is one of the exceptions that I really, really enjoyed. And the Conrad Kurz one I have a weird soft spot for because he talked to his father. I don't care what anyone else says. That's canon. For Jen. It's a wonderful scene. I don't give a shit. But I'm trying to remember he also did my favorite David Annandale story is I cannot think of the name of it right now, but it was the story that he wrote in that Wicked and Damned book with the the changer of ways.
Oh, that story. He wrote that one. I know he wrote one of them. That was great.
He is at his best, and I think that might have been part of this. He's at his best with body horror.
So that the hail, when that happened, it was almost like reading The Shining with the hedge animals again. Like, I was just like, oh my God.
Nothing is like that.
As I said, almost. And the crazy thing is, I could almost hear the shout. I could hear it in my head. And
the other time that he did that was the Deacon of Wounds. Remember the way that the little things were scream, scream?
Yep.
You were like, you could hear the worms.
But just like that the changer of when he was like, hail, 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 changer was, I got goosebumps. I could hear it. I was like, oh, this is bad. This is so very bad.
Damn it, I thought I had that book like right next to me. I was going to actually grab it because now it's killing me that I can't remember the name of it. The Wicked and the Damned, if you haven't read that one yet, that is low-key one of the best books that the Black Library has put out. All 3 horror stories are excellent.
And they're all connected in a really unique way. Like it really, really good.
Damn it, I can't think of the name of that
I'm so glad
story.
Jen bought an extra copy and gave me that copy.
I did, yes, because I was like, damn it, read this! I feel like it was the only time I was like super, super pushy about please read this.
That's true.
And then you didn't regret it.
No, it was very, very good. I really, really enjoyed the whole thing.
I don't know which one's my favorite. I don't know if it's The Beast in the Trenches, which I remember that name, or the Ghost Story one. The Ghost Story one is, that one tapped into the same, anything that deals with ghosts and the warp. I'm always like,
I think Change Your Ways one would have to, just because that resonated with me so hard. But other than that, like, I can't pick because they all terrified me in their own delightful ways.
Now I have to look this up. What was the name of the story? No, it doesn't have the name of the story on the Black Library website. What? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Anyways, it's a great story. Buy the book if you haven't read it. But yes, I love his horror stuff. The House of Night and Sheen. God, I loved that book. So much that he does. But this story really reminded me of how much, like, why I fell in love with him as an author and why I enjoy it. Why I'm always like, oh, we gotta at least try a David Annandale book, right? Like, if he were to write one of the Dawn of Fire books, I would reluctantly be like, okay, let's try to get some hype. Yeah, I stand by that statement. It came out of my mouth and I was like, yeah, no, I would.
We would try.
I didn't say I'd succeed, but I said that I would try. I don't want to have to read another Dawn of Fire book.
We just have 2 more. That's it, just 2 more.
We just pull that Band-Aid off and never have to do this again. It's gonna be okay. So, but now we've read this book. We're also, just so that we can stay on track here, we read this one, and then I think the next book that we're reading is also somewhat short. It doesn't look like it's a super...
No, I didn't realize how short it was until I looked. I was like, oh, it's pretty short.
Which is the perfect length for somebody who may or may not be getting her wisdom teeth out on Wednesday.
Well, you got something to do.
I got something to do. So we are going to read the Lilith Hesperax book, Queen of Knives, by Mike Brooks.
Max
Brooks. That's a whole different book. That's also a whole different human. That's Mel Brooks' son. I am somewhat excited for this book because this is another one of those, like, the character series. So far, even the ones that I...
It's the Eldari, or the Drukari, sorry.
I know, it is. And that makes me a little bit nervous too, but
it's short. So
it's short, and more importantly, I have appreciated the goal. Even so, though I haven't loved some of these, I've appreciated the goal of this series of, like, hey, let's just dive into somebody who's famous in the Warhammer 40k universe. Like, why not? Give them some more color. I think that's absolutely great until they get bored and move on. Let's enjoy this one while we have it. But yeah, Lilith Hesperax, good thing to read. It's very red.
It is red. It matches her hair.
Hair, which I was about to say humanly impossible, and then I remembered that she's a Drakari. It's illogical, okay? The way that it's straight up anime hair, but whatever.
You know what it reminds me of? I'm going to ruin this book now. It reminds me of, the Inhuman Medusa? How her hair...
Well, I was going with some anime nonsense, so, I don't know.
That's how I can kill a conversation. Mention the Inhumans, because that's what killed Marvel in the first place. Anyway.
Yeah. I feel like there are people out there who, like when they... Anyways. Yeah, the Inhumans, because, mutants weren't enough. Anyways. Ooh! Well, dredged up some feelings there tonight.
Oh, comic book feelings.
With her hair, like, tell me you misunderstood the entire point of Medusa. Just the hair that's just...
She's got a lot of hair, and she can make it move and stuff.
Stuff and things, and it can grab people, like...
Yes.
Killer hair, everyone! But here, let me ruin it. Let me repay this favor for you. Would you rather read an entire graphic novel about the Inhuman Medusa and her killer hair, or go rewatch the scene with the Beard Eater from Doom Patrol?
Let's see. I would actually rewatch the beard eating scene.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody who didn't watch Doom Patrol, I actually highly recommend it. Like, you don't even have to really be into the Doom Patrol. Brendan Fraser does a phenomenal job in it. It's a really fun series. It has Alan Tudyk in it, for goodness sake. And hot roach on rat action. That's not even a joke. But they bring out an obscure DC character called the Beard Eater. I think is it Beard Hunter or Beard Eater?
The Beard Hunter.
Beard Hunter, who eats human hair. And anyways, it gets grosser from there.
Yeah, he can find anybody by consuming their hair.
There is a scene in that show that is probably easily the most disgusting thing I have ever seen.
I literally dry heaved seeing that scene.
I tried to ruin it back for you, and I ended up ruining it for myself anyways, so...
That's okay. I mean, I brought in Inhumans and Neon Genesis Evangelion, so, like, I might win for ruining things tonight.
Carrie is why we can't have nice things, everyone. You heard it here first.
And remember...
Back to you in the newsroom.
I've also seen Mimic. Anyway, I just love bringing that up, that of all the movies I haven't seen, there's that one. It breaks her brain, guys.
It beggars belief. Like the classic movies that you'd be like, hey, have you seen this classic movie that literally everyone has seen? No. And yet you've seen Mimic.
I don't have to explain myself to you.
You know what? That's 100% true. That is 100% true. But the judgment is real.
Fair.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, to be fair, I judge me too.
Fair.
For paying movies to see that movie in the theater. But anyway, you have listened to the Warhammer 40k episode regarding Chains of Golgotha by David Annandale. Be sure to join us next time for Lilith Hasparak's Queen of Knives by Mike Brooks. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Come join our Discord. We have fun discussions over there. We talk about what books are coming out and how we're all going to be broke. And some people actually show what they're painting. So I think it's Daka had posted one of his orc mechs, and he actually created gore in between the jaws, and it's amazing. So I like looking at this stuff. I don't produce anything because I'm not nearly as talented, but it's still fun to look at everybody else's things. like, oh, one of our other guys on Discord just shared he finished painting Mortarion, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you've ever seen one of the Mortarion models, because they're huge.
They're huge, and I'm always in awe of all of the ones that I've seen people do. Just the patience and the time and just
Detail.
yes, that goes into it is just yeah, I am in awe. I am absolutely in awe, and I love to see other people's art. I love to see the food that you cook too, and I love to see the art that people make. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yes, we like admiring it because I know that I will never sit down and do any of that stuff. But I will write a lot. It's like our site also has articles about adventures of reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. I'm almost done with the Horus Heresy, people. Seriously. Just turned in book number 52 article. Just gotta wait for my editor to put it up there. But got that going. 2 more books to go. Just 2 books to go. It's been a long time coming. I'm getting there.
And then the Siege of Terra, anyways.
That's true, but it's not 54 books. But regardless, please stay a while and read from a crack. I got my Fallen Angels mug today, so I guess I'm not Alfarius, but I just hunt these bastards.
So Steph Batal released a
Oh, nice.
Iron Warrior sticker to go with mine. You can find her on Etsy and Instagram, and I absolutely love all of her little stickers. So shout out to her.
All right, well, catch you guys next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.